and welcome back to Market Shares. I'm your host, Tony Blodgett, and today I have a great interview with you. This is one of my good friends, Josh Martin. Josh Martin works with me here at New American Funding and just had a recent promotion to Regional Vice President. He helps us build, grow, and support the market in Northern California and Southern Idaho. Lives in Boise, Idaho, but a transplant from California. I'm sure we'll talk about that at some point. Josh Martin, welcome to Market Shares. Glad to have you on here, buddy.
Thanks, Tony. Glad to be on, my friend.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, look, I don't know, you've only been here at New American for what, not even a year yet, right?
We just hit a year at the beginning of June.
Just hit happy anniversary, because I didn't keep track. I hit 11 years on June 2nd. So, hopefully there's, 10 more ahead of this for you. And, I'm all about staying in one place. I've had three jobs in the last 30 years in the mortgage industry. And I got to say, when you land somewhere and you dig in and you become part of, the culture of the company, when you become part of, look, every company has its challenges, but when you decide that I want to be a part of helping solution for those problems versus someone who complains about the problems, man, what a wonder it can do for your career. So I just thought I'd add that in there. But so 1 year here at New American Funding now, you lived for years in Northern California. Maybe give us a little bit of your background just for the audience of, how you got in the mortgage business, where'd you spend the bulk of your career, and then we'll transition. I got some other questions I want to go over with you on how you guys have accomplished such amazing growth in the year that you've been here. But we'll get to that shortly. But give us a little bit of background first.
Yeah, absolutely. So I started my career, truthfully, I got into the banking career at Wells Fargo in 2005. And I was there for a short period of time. I was basically a business banker, and was referring a lot of deals over to the mortgage loan officers that covered the branch there. And, had this mindset where I was like, man, these guys had nice cars. I felt like they had nice watches, nice jewelry. And I thought, God, it's so easy. Everyone needs a mortgage, right? So that was the direction I kind of wanted to go. About a year into it, the loan officer that covered that branch basically was like, hey, man, you should really think about getting a mortgage. Like, you're sending a ton of referrals. Maybe it's something you can do. And ended up having an interview. And when I went in, I was, had the mindset where I wanted to start at the bottom. I wanted to start as like a processor and really learn, how to do the job correctly, and was concerned about, just being thrown into the sales piece and not knowing what to do. And, so I interviewed to actually be a processor. It was a 4-hour interview, 4.5 hours, something like that. It was the longest interview I've probably ever had. And, at the end of the interview, the manager basically convinced me. She's like, no, I don't see you as a processor. I think you need to go into sales. And I was like, well, I don't want to start as just a loan officer. I mean, she's like, what about a junior? And I'm like, okay, cool. Let's try that out. So that was when I went into mortgage, and it's pretty much I've been in mortgage since. I was at Wells for 17 years, truthfully, a little over 17 years. And so I get what you're saying with regards to, you really buy into the culture, you buy into the company, kind of goes through your veins and whatnot. It just got to a point at Wells, in 2020, COVID hit. There was a lot of guideline change. There was a lot of things going on. And I one day was in my office, and I just kind of had an epiphany. I was like, God, I'm really not that happy here. Can you find happiness in mortgage again? And at the time, I was, anyone that wasn't a good fit for Wells Fargo, or, Wells Fargo was easy place to lose your job at the time, truthfully, because of all the stuff that kind of happened. So anyone I potentially had to get rid of, I was kind of swinging them towards Craig and just saying, hey, why don't you guys try this avenue? And referring a lot of people over to Loan Depot. And Craig had been pretty transparent about anytime you want to come over, whether you want to set up shop here in Northern California, San Jose, or I've got this opportunity out in Idaho, why don't you come check it out? And so I came out to Idaho, and we enjoyed what we saw, and so I gave it a whirl, and spent some time at at Loan Depot, but the wheels kind of fell off when they went public, is how I felt. And so we made a transition to US Bank, and but knew that we wanted to get back in the IMB space. That's really where we were the happiest. And fast forward a couple years, we meet you guys, and after probably a 6-month courtship, we made the move over here, and I can tell you this is where I'd like to end my career.
Yeah. Well, that's, so Craig Stamler is who you're talking about. Craig,
Yep.
recently promoted to divisional SVP here. And you guys came over pretty much together when you came over, and have worked together really to build out the presence in Northern California and Idaho. We didn't have anything in Southern Idaho at the time. And before we get into that so much, so tell me about the move to Idaho. So Craig lives in Idaho. You moved to Idaho. There's a lot of people from Northern California that live in Idaho. So was it really just for this opportunity that Craig had presented to you prior, or had you had a desire to move to Idaho? Like, walk me through that a little bit.
Ironically enough, probably in 2012, 2013, we were working out of an office in Santa Clara, Wells Fargo office, and me and a good buddy basically were the loan officers that were in that office. And when we had downtime, we would just start looking at, other areas outside of California, but we knew we wanted to be, potentially on the West Coast. We started looking at homes in Idaho, and specifically Boise and Eagle. And in doing that, we just noticed, like, wow, they really make houses really nice here. They're huge, these huge garage, right? RV garages, mud rooms, these big laundry rooms, and big great rooms, and just beautiful landscape. You get all the colors, just like you're used to there in the Pacific Northwest. Because of all the different seasons, you just get the pops of red and purple, and it would just always just notice it was really gorgeous, and the homes were really, really affordable. And so Craig comes in the foray, and he becomes our branch manager at the time, and we literally were telling him about it. And then so in 2019, Craig decided to go check out Idaho and kind of see what it was about. And he came to specifically Boise and Eagle, and had remembered us having these conversations about, man, they make houses really nice out there. And so he calls us up one day, and he's like, I just put a deposit on a house, and I'm moving out here. And, you guys are the one that kind of put me on to Eagle, Idaho, and why don't you guys come out and visit? And so that's exactly what we did. Is me and a good buddy who's also a NAF employee right now made the move, made the trip out, and drove out here and visited, and really liked what we saw, and went back, and took about a month of going back and forth with the family and weighing the pros and cons, and said, hey, I think that we're going to do this, and called up Craig, and that was pretty much all she wrote, and we ended up out here.
That's very cool. Any regrets with moving from Northern California to Eagle, Idaho?
Yeah, it's tough. There's pros and cons to everywhere, right? We trade off the diversity of food in Northern California is unbeatable. Having all my friends and family in Northern California, as well as that's where my sphere of influence is, truthfully. So yeah, that piece was tough, but you come out here, it's more quiet. It's definitely more easygoing. It's beautiful. There's no trash. It's just a very clean place, and you feel very, very safe. But then, you do miss the California piece when you've got all the different sports teams, and there's always something to do. So it's tough. They're both great places. I don't think you can go wrong either place. I have considered making a move back to California potentially, especially now with this new role, and just feeling like, being in market would be really good to, for recruiting and being able to meet people and face to face and in person. But still haven't made that decision yet.
Got it. Well, let's talk a little bit about your role. So, I think it's pretty unique. A lot of people are in a mortgage, career, job, whatever. Maybe they're a branch manager. Maybe they think about wanting to be a regional, but there's already, a regional in place. And, I think in your situation, you've really been able to partner with Craig,
Yep.
to the point where now you guys are kind of, you're a regional VP. You guys are both running that Northern California market, so you've kind of come up, and you correct me if I'm wrong, but from a support role of supporting what Craig's doing, and now with your own opportunity, to really shine in that space. Maybe share a little bit with the audience. I think there's other people that are probably in your situation. Like, how have you been able to, create the value in what you provide to the team when it comes to recruiting and support and so on and so forth? How do you guys kind of divide up your roles and responsibilities? Because if you were to talk to Craig, which I've done many times, I mean, he refers to you as his partner. Like, I couldn't do any of this without Josh. So maybe give a little inside glimpse as to what that relationship looks like, how you guys work together, and any advice you might give to someone who wants to be able to align closer with their leadership and create their own opportunity for the future.
Yeah, well, when Craig came into Wells Fargo, he was the first leader I'd worked with that really did what he said he was going to do. And his engagement was just phenomenal. He was always out in market. He had great ideas, and I just was really attracted to that. I'm like, hey, this is the type of guy that you follow. Always very positive. The cup is always half full with Craig. And we have this, what we refer to as an abundant mentality, where it's about, it's just not about money or me, or, what I'm going to make or what I'm going to do. We go into it as a partnership. And, we've kind of proven that throughout the years with regards to just referring people to each other, even when we were at different companies. Or even when we were at US Bank, I had, someone who called, who's actually an area manager here with us at NAF, and reached out to me, and I could have hired him under me, but I felt he was a better fit at the time for Craig, and so we did that. So we've always just been there's no selfishness, and I think that's just done us good throughout the years. And we came on board. We don't like to necessarily recruit. We kind of refer to it more as attracting talent, and not trying to sell people heavily. And we've throughout the years, I've kind of followed how I saw him as my manager when I was back at Wells, 13 years ago, when he came into the market, with just do what you say you're going to do, support the people. Don't forget what it's like to be, on the streets, which is the loan officers. They're the ones that do the hard job. They're out there working with the realtors and all their partners, and getting shopped, and it's a tough business. We know, I learned very quickly when I came in that mortgage isn't that easy. Just because these people have nice cars, they're grinding. They're working their tails off, and that was just the mentality that I had, and it's done me very well in the business, and yeah.
Yeah. Well, you guys may not call it recruiting, but look, the numbers speak for themselves. I think, between you and Craig, I mean, it's close to $500 million of recruited production year to date, which is pretty phenomenal. Now, I know that doesn't happen without contribution from the other people in your leadership team, your branch managers in particular. So maybe for a minute, if you could talk about kind of, how do you view the branch manager role? How do you try to support branch managers? And what steps do you think a branch manager could do to ensure their success and growth? And just what's your opinion on that piece of it?
Yeah. So, most of the branch managers here at NAF are producing branch managers. So they've got a tough job, right? They've got to do their own business, and then try to grow a team and support that team. So, my job is to try to help them as well. So I try to be, close to the loan officers as well, and be a second level of support in case that branch manager is busy. Now, these branch managers that we have, I think, they need to continue to focus obviously on growth, because that's what we want. So there's that recruiting piece, and then supporting the people, I think, is where your people are your loudest voice on the streets. If you're doing the job and you're supporting them and you do what you say you're going to do, they're going to go outside and they're going to be your cheerleaders. Okay. If you're going to go to events, we get involved a lot of real estate organizations such as, ARIA, VA Rep, the Building Contractors Association, and plenty others. Going out as a team, not just you go to a lot of these events and it's typically you got one loan officer from this company and they're just there, by themselves. And when we go out in a group and it kind of creates a buzz and people want to be part of that. And they say, wow, especially out here in Idaho, where you got Craig now as a divisional who will still go to these events, myself now as a regional, prior an area manager, but still you're having some of the senior leaders out there at these events and people are attracted to that. And then your people, when they talk to their peers, other companies, they're like, yeah, I got my regional coming out with me, like, and they support me and they do these things. And then people start to talk and they want to be a part of that. So you create a buzz in the marketplace. And I think that's really always been something that we've focused on and we've never lost sight of, and we continue to do it as much as we possibly can. There's times where we obviously can't make certain events, but anytime we can make it, I'm going to go. And I let my people know, and I let people that come on know as well that, they can reach out and I'm here for them. And if I can support them in a way, like such as going to an event with them, I'm going to do it.
Right.
And it's worked really well.
Yeah, 100%. No, I love that about you guys. You guys are involved in so many things, and then that creates so many opportunities for you to share that, social media, all the other buzz that gets created around that. So as you think about a producing branch manager, arguably one of the toughest, if not the toughest role in the mortgage business, right? I mean, you've committed to building your own book of business, which in a market like this is hard enough by itself, but then also making yourself available to help others, to mentor and to grow their business. So when you think about recruiting on top of that, like how much time do you think a branch manager should spend, if you have a rule of thumb, engaged in recruiting, and then what does that look like? Because I'll tell you, we just had a call with all the branch managers today, and one of the things that I think about is, to me, it's as important that you are, a branch manager that is welcoming, like you're open, you want to help and mentor people as much as it is finding the people, right? Finding the people is one thing, but once they meet you, them going, man, I could see where if I plugged into this branch with this manager, my business would grow, right? That's what ultimately loan officers are looking for is, I don't need to make a move, but if I can make a move and take my business to the next level, because now I have leadership and mentorship and even someone who is a top producer that I can emulate, that's, I think, attractive to loan officers, especially those that might be struggling in the environment they're in today. So when you're talking to your branch managers, what is the expectation as far as how much time they should spend recruiting? Is it really more like you guys do the heavy lifting on recruiting and you just want them to be ready when an opportunity comes, or are they dedicating some of their time? Like, what's your thoughts around this?
Yeah, I mean, me and Greg do a lot of the heavy lifting. We do want our branch managers to dedicate some time to it, but we also want that mindset to where they're always kind of thinking about recruiting as far as when they're going out to the events, like I said, and just kind of meeting people and getting to know people and then giving us a name and number or doing a warm introduction to us and let us take it from there. But, we do want them looking and, going through top 100 lists, making some type of cold call so that they get comfortable with the process. So we kind of have a process as far as like, whether we use LinkedIn or, getting our list and making calls and kind of how we walk through the recruiting process. Craig is he's very regimented in his recruiting process. And so we follow it pretty much to a T, and it's done us very well. But yeah, as far as we don't have like a weekly time commitment that we ask them to do, but we ask them that, on a monthly basis that they're at least making some calls, to people that they don't know outside of their network. And then the other thing is, we also tell them, call your people. Most of your people have worked at other mortgage companies. Just call them up. Hey, you're happy, right? Who do you know? I know you know other people. Make me an introduction. If you could take 5-10 minutes out of your week and make a call to a loan officer that is good at what they do, you think would be a good fit here at NAF, and see if they'd be willing to just have a conversation with me, and that's the easy stuff right there. And if they can do that, you can start to get people interested and create a list of people that you can eventually bring to the company.
Yeah. No, I agree with that. I think that, some, producing branch managers have to focus on their production first, right? I mean, they're that's where they make the majority of their income. And I think some people want to be a branch manager and they don't realize the amount of effort maybe necessary in order to help other loan officers. I do the math for them often. It's like, if you're making X amount of override, just think about how many transactions you need somebody else to do during the time it would have taken you to do one transaction. And it's got to be something you're passionate about, and I think that people can feel that. And so being a branch manager isn't for everybody. I think a lot of people just think it's like the next logical step in their career. And I often tell people, maybe not, sometimes just building a big production team is going to be more, rewarding. Maybe for many people, that's the next logical step, but they just think the manager, I don't know if it's just the manager thing in their title or what, but it's definitely not for everybody. But, as a regional VP, you spend a lot of time with the branch managers, and it's really kind of your job, to help support them and get them to the next level. And if we're going to grow as an organization, yeah, you can open new branches, but backfilling and helping the branches that are already successful is definitely part of that equation. And you guys do a really good job at that. You and Craig are really good, I feel like, about building the culture within, a region. And it is important, that exists. All right, so I want to talk about a little bit about, you spent so much time in the bank world, and I don't want to necessarily talk about Wells Fargo specifically or U.S. Bank specifically, but you've worked at IMBs, you've worked in the bank world, and you had said something earlier that you guys felt like the independent mortgage banker space is the right space for you guys. Maybe, can you speak a little bit to that? And maybe there's loan officers out there who are like, and I know that they're like this because I've talked to them, I only feel like I can be successful because I'm at a bank, and it's the product, it's the rates, it's the 7-year arm that we have, that is so important to my career. But yet we've seen, now, I don't know, maybe not hundreds, but, a lot of loan officers that have successfully made that transition, and they're thriving with an independent mortgage company. So what are the standouts for you on the things that make it a better environment for loan officers who might feel like they have to rely on something about the safety that a bank provides them?
I tell people oftentimes that, when you're at the bank, you really, most of them have a great 7-year, some of them focus on a 10-year arm, and they're great in those jumbo markets. You get a lot of the cookie cutter clients that make a ton of money and fit in that box. But support wise, they're never going to compare to what we have here in the IMB space and product wise. And when you're at a bank, you go out and you meet realtors, you might go to open houses, and introduce yourself, and someone's, working with one big bank already and you're from a different big bank. And what do you really have that's different? Maybe your relationship pricing model is a slightly different, or you can do really big PEs because of, bank supports that. But the guidelines are pretty much very similar. And when you're at a bank, you've got to kind of be that number one loan officer for the realtor. And in the IMB space, you can have your number ones. You're always going to have, your realtors where you're the go-to guy, right? But you can also go out to these open houses and change the narrative. And I don't have to be the number one guy. You can go out and they can say, hey, I'm working with so-and-so from Bank of America. And you might know that person. And you can say, hey, I know him. He's a great loan officer. I actually really respect the fact that you're loyal to him. I'm not trying to replace that. I just know that there's a lot of stuff that I can do that he can't do. So let's talk sometime about how, you can close more deals with us, because I don't need to be your number one guy. I'm totally fine being the solutions person when something happens, or you can't get a deal through. And I like to always joke with realtors, because realtors are great customers for bank statement programs, right? We all know that realtors make, the good realtors make a ton of money, But if you've ever done a loan for a realtor, I remember the first time I got one of my realtor's loans and I was at the big bank and I was so excited that I got the loan, only to then have to tell her that I couldn't do the loan because her write-offs were too great. She couldn't qualify. She would have been a great candidate for a bank statement loan. At the time, I'd never been in the IMB space. I didn't know anything about the bank statement loan or, have anyone to even refer to. And so I always joke around with realtors and I have those conversations and, make light of the fact that, hey, you guys are great clients for bank statement loans and we can help you. And it opens dialogue. And that's, with these realtors, you got to give situations. You could say, hey, I've got a bank statement loan. And they're like, oh, okay, great. Like a lot of them, they don't know exactly what the bank statement loan is. So you got to give them an example of how you came in and maybe saved the deal on a time that, a bank said no and we said yes. And so I like that aspect, and I like having those conversations with loan officers. And I think a lot of these loan officers, there's some that they kind of see that light and they go, oh man, like you got all these other products. I can go focus on all this other stuff and sell all these other things, and they're fun and they're exciting and they're different. And so that's why I think the IMB space is so special, truthfully.
Yeah. Well, and the challenge I've seen with banks, and again, not to pick on banks, but they seem to be like they could have a really strong 7-year arm for a while and then just poof, it's gone. It's like, we've got enough of those. We're not going to sell that product anymore. And then it's like you were kind of like a one-trick pony, and then what are you left with, I also love what you said about, it's okay to be a backup lender. It's okay to be number 2 on someone's list. That really, I think, speaks to your abundance mentality, right? It's like, look, the idea is I don't need to take business away from somebody else because there's plenty of things that I can offer that they probably can't offer. And over time, it's just human nature. If you're continually able to save the deal, chances are you're going to move from second chair to first chair and you're going to get those opportunities anyway, but there is so much more diversity, but you have to have that mindset that I might have to let go a little bit of what I'm used to being known for so that I can be known for this so many more things, right? And be so many more things to so many more people. And I could see where that would be different, a little bit scary for people. But man, I've been super impressed, especially with the team that you guys have brought over on how people have successfully navigated this transition. We got a number of President's Council winners and, people in the top echelons here at New American that you brought, and they're people that you might have thought of as bank people, and yet here they are killing it in the IMB space, and it's really exciting to see.
Thanks, Tony.
So Josh, to bring us to a close here, you've had what I think is a remarkable first year here at NAF, and maybe just what does the future look like for you? What do you envision happening over the next year, 2 years, 5 years? Sounds like you might be wrestling with an idea of moving back to Northern California. We'll see how that plays out, but kind of what are your goals? What do you want to see happen in your career if you've given that much thought?
Yeah, I'm actually really happy with the role I'm in right now, and this has been, something that I've aspired for a long time, and I think the next step up is years away, and so I'm just going to continue to grow the region. We have big aspirations for what we want to do. Truthfully, we set lofty goals, and I think we will hit them consistently. And so, yeah, I'm going to just continue to grow out the region. I am buy into the fact that Rick and Patty want to become a top 5 IMB, and that is their goal. It's kind of the legacy play, and that's my goal is to help them achieve that. So I'm just going to keep doing what I do and see how big we can take this Northern California and Southwestern Idaho region, truthfully.
Yeah, awesome. Well, look, I couldn't be happier, that you're here. I'm super impressed with what you and Craig have done. And I think Craig gets a lot of the credit, but I think you're, well deserving of the promotion. I'm excited to see your continued growth in Northern California. And I'm just glad you came on here to share your story because, this market shares isn't about, obviously it's impossible not to talk about, where I work or my career. It's not really about about that. I want to showcase people that are winning in this market. So I don't care what company you work at. If you're at a bank, maybe some of the things that Josh just said, resonated with you. If you're a branch manager aspiring to be in a regional type role, maybe there's some things that you can pick up from a guy like Josh who, has taken this journey, as an area manager and now has this opportunity. And a lot of people might look and say that those opportunities don't exist, but they do when you put in the work and when you partner with your leadership team, it creates the opportunities that you want to see, come to life for you. And I think Josh is a perfect example of that. So, man, I wish you continued success in your career. I'm really excited to see what you and Craig and the team do up in the Northwest. You got some awesome branch managers. You got some really phenomenal top producers, and you guys have a lot of momentum behind you. And I think it's, not everybody has been able to create an environment like what you guys have created. And I think everyone benefits, from that sort of a a work environment. After COVID, everything seems like disconnected. You guys really try to bring a family feel to what it is you're doing, and it's working. So congratulations to you. Thanks for taking the time to share with our audience here on Market Shares. To those of you who are listening to Market Shares, maybe you're on a podcast platform, maybe you're on YouTube, which is my favorite place to consume content. But either way, I appreciate the time that you take to listen to Market Shares. I appreciate it more when you tell your friends or colleagues about what we're doing over here at Market Shares. We got a lot of amazing episodes coming up for the second half of the year. And so please subscribe if you haven't already. Let someone else know about Market Shares. Let's grow this message. And until next time, take care. Josh, thank you, sir, for your time today.
Thank you. It's been a pleasure.
And we'll see you next time. Bye for now.